Good evening, and thank you for joining us tonight. My name's Amy Walmsley, and I've been a member of the Public Arts and Culture Commission for the Village of Yellow Springs. Before we begin, a few housekeeping notes. Restrooms are located upstairs, and I wanted to just give everyone a gentle reminder to please be mindful of your beverages and avoid spilling. And then also, any trash, there's a trash can right next to the door for you to please dispose of your trash. Please also join me in thanking Current Cuisine for catering tonight's event, along with Antioch College and Herndon Gallery. Along with Antioch College and Herndon Gallery for hosting the event. We are taking donations on behalf of the Herndon Gallery at the pink box located above the trash can next to the door. The Public Arts and Culture Commission supports the mission of the Village of Yellow Springs in facilitating, promoting, and recognizing the public arts, add value for providing educational opportunities, activities, economic sustainability, and an improved quality of life. The Commission navigates and connects our creative community, and the arts community with the village government. Please join me in recognizing the PACC members. Carmen Brown, Village Council member. She's in the back. Michael Caselli. Phoenix Fire is also here with us tonight. Laura Truitt Carpenter. And Kay Conninger. Thank you for all that you do. We are here to honor the work of 5 community members with the Village Inspiration in Design Award. The purpose of the VIDA is to highlight the unique and creative contributions made to our village and to foster connections, pride, and a sense of community. We believe that art and culture are critical as we continue to build a village that provides a good quality of life, fuels creativity and innovation, and attracts people who will continue to expand the creative vision and profound thought in which the community is rooted. The Public Arts and Culture Commission, on behalf of the Village of Yellow Springs, presents the VIDA Award to an individual who creatively enhances the overall culture of Yellow Springs and makes a transformational artistic contribution to the village. The goal is to recognize inspirational art in its many forms that enrich our community. The award being given tonight to the recipients was designed and created by Michael Caselli. Thank you, Michael. Our first recipient is Jennifer Berman. She was nominated by several community members. Since her graduation from Antioch College, Jennifer's cartoons have been featured nationwide in various publications, and she has published several graphic novels. Those who nominated Jennifer stated, "Her art does what socially engaged art can do, lead us to see our world and ourselves in a way that surprises us, even if the subject is a familiar one, and teaches us even if we thought we had the lessons already figured out." She has impacted the community in her work to support other artists by her involvement in Art on the Lawn and Village Artisans. Jennifer's artwork has brought unique charm and humor to our village that demonstrates the distinct spirit of Yellow Springs. Jennifer has been responsible for teaching and supporting Yellow Springs youth in the arts through working hands-on in classrooms and bringing numerous musicians and visual artists to exhibit their talents and inspire students. It was said that in every effort of her work, Jennifer Berman exemplifies the values of collaboration, creativity, and community that define Yellow Springs. Congratulations to Jennifer Berman on her 2024 VIDA Award.
Wow, that is beautiful. Classic Michael Caselli. Isn't that gorgeous? All right, let's see. What do I do with it? There we go. So I've never received an award like this, so I have no idea whether this speech is appropriate, but we'll see how it goes. You can tell me, right? Okay. Thank you very much for this honor. Nothing is created in a vacuum, including our artistic creations. As a child, one of my favorite pastimes was drawing with my mother, who between air raids and hiding from Nazis was an art student in Paris. My father went to an arts magnet school in Detroit, and he loved drawing as well, making me endless cats in endless scenarios as we took long car trips, greatly extended by my mother's fear of taking highways. Little did I know that it took an hour and a half to get to Wisconsin from Chicago. We had to rent a hotel. I mean, it was ridiculous. When I was in high school, I somehow fell into working at a progressive record label in Chicago, Flying Fish. It was there that I learned about all sorts of musical forms, and my love of music deepened. I also did graphic design for them and some cartoons as well. When I got to Antioch in the fall of 1979, I was immediately welcomed by WYSO, which operated out of the Union Building. I was offered a slot on the daily Rise When the Rooster Crows, which was at that point strictly bluegrass. Eventually, I hosted other shows as well, a folk show on the weekends and an evening Anything Goes show on Saturday nights from 10 to midnight. At Antioch, many of my interests were encouraged. I drew political cartoons for community government and The Record, the weekly school paper, which I eventually co-edited with my friend Eric Bates. I was a permanent fixture on the Performing Arts Committee, where I was able to bring many of my musical friends from Flying Fish. Peter Rowan, Jim Post, Claudia Schmidt, and Charlie King were just some of the names that come to mind. We even hosted a fundraiser for Sing Out magazine in Kelly Hall, with many folk luminaries on the bill, Guy Carawan, Sparky Rucker, Utah Phillips, among others. My CWSP, or financial aid job, was to help Al Denman run his Friday forums, which were born, I think, in 1982. These amazing weekly conversations that Al facilitated taught me much about the value of free speech, combined with the imperative of human decency. There we go. Al was truly a master at hosting difficult conversations and gently keeping everyone to their allocated time and respecting others' rights to their opinion, as challenging as that could be. I graduated with a degree in philosophy because that's what Al Denman taught, and I took every course he offered. Al was my advisor, and when I graduated, he said, "Don't become a lawyer, we have millions of them. Be a cartoonist." So that's what I did. When I moved back to Chicago, I started a postcard company with my cartoons and did design for Flying Fish Records and cartoons for the independent socialist newspaper in these times. I met lots of creatives in Chicago, and one of them, the novelist and essayist Sandy Weisenberg, advised me to turn all of the drama in my life into cartoons, which eventually turned into books. So when Matt, Mindy, and I moved back to the Yellow Springs area to raise our children, I brought all of these skills and notions and contacts with me. It was a pleasure to match new Antioch students to friends in the community, which became their homes away from home. I brought a lot of musicians to both Antioch and the larger community through all of my contacts made while in Chicago. All of those musicians informed my musical tastes, which I share with my WISO audience today. My parents' interest in teaching art to kids inspired me and Matt, who also comes from a very artistic family, to create many fun projects both at the Antioch School and Mills Lawn School. We created holiday cards out of children's art, which we turned into a fundraiser for the school. With the blessings of Heidi Hoover, we turned her classroom into a mess of cut paper and glue, which became an ABC book that Hardy Ballantyne bound in front of all the kids. We had a book release party when it was all done, complete with Matt playing cello in the corner in his concert black, with family members oohing and eyeing over what their kids produced. Matt and I organized the talent shows for many years at Mills Lawn, with Matt playing bass or backup guitar for anyone whose act needed a boost. Matt even organized a group of parents and MLS employees to form a band, Folker 2, called the Pop Rocks, that played after the talent shows. And speaking of Matt, none of my accomplishments would have been completed or would have been very good without his generous help and enthusiasm. He designed all of the beautiful posters for every event that I planned, and along with my pal Cindy Seek, schlepped boxes to countless street fairs where I sell my things. Matt makes my work ready for production as greeting cards, t-shirts, books, and online. He really deserves this award much more than I do for all of his beautiful behind-the-scenes graphic design work, which he so generously donates to the Yellow Springs Community Orchestra and Band, the Library Association, and donated to Antioch Mills Lawn and the Antioch School for so many years. And Matt's talent as a musician is also a huge contribution to Yellow Springs. Where is Matt? There he is. So thank you, Matt, and my great friends for fooling folks into thinking I deserve this honor. It takes a village.
Congratulations. Our next recipient, unfortunately, is no longer with us. Bill Chappelle was a vocalist and teacher here at Antioch College. He was responsible for the start of the African American Culture Week here in Yellow Springs, which included the Blues Fest, a celebration that brought top artists to various genres here in Yellow Springs. To this day, you can see and hear the impact of Bill Chappelle in the Yellow Springs community, not only through the artistic influences of his children, but through the mention of his name and his impact among Yellow Springs organizations and events. Tonight, accepting the award on behalf of Bill Chappelle is Carmen Brown.
It's a really good-looking award, Caselli. It's really good-looking. Just a really quick story. I'm sure there are many of us who have many, many stories about Bill. I knew Bill as a young teenager, 13, 14, and I told him, I was like, hey, at Weavers, I like to sing. Bill was also a friend of my uncle's who was perpetually pursuing his PhD. His name was Wendell Temple. He taught at Texas A&M and also at Wilberforce University. He and Bill were very close. So I met him at 14 at Weavers then, and at 19 I decided that I was going to seriously pursue voice coaching. You know, I needed a teacher. So I went to him, and he said, "So I want to ask you, how do you plan on compensating me for my gracing you with my expertise?" I was like, yeah, I don't have a job. I'm 19. I do stuff that 19-year-olds don't have a job. It's like, well, I have an idea. I like a barter system. Okay, barter. I'm like, what is barter? I'm 19. What's barter? What's barter? So I didn't let him know that I didn't know what barter meant. Because that would be, he was so brilliant that I didn't want to be 19 in front of him. So he said to me, "You come to my house on Fridays in the afternoon." I said, "What time?" He said, "Time is a mutually agreed upon concept. I was like, oh, I'm still 19. I need a time. And so what, afternoon. I said, okay, noon is 1, sure, 1 o'clock. On Fridays, you'll come at 1, you'll clean my bathroom from 1 until 1:30. At 1:30, we'll begin our lessons. Fine. That first Friday, I went, cleaned the bathroom. I guess I did a good job because at 1:30 we had our lesson. I didn't know that my first voice lesson was not going to involve any singing at all whatsoever. I was laying on my back in the living room, breathing with my belly for 45 minutes. The voice is our first instrument. And Bill taught me that. The next lesson, I was required to make fire engine noises so that Bill could find my range. So I thought maybe we'd be at a piano or a keyboard. No. Carmen. Yes. I'm sure you know what a fire engine sounds like. Yeah, I do. Do it. What do you mean? Do it. Perfect. First soprano. Like he knew. Everyone, like there are a lot of us who have Bill stories. And I don't know. It's funny, the gift you recognize someone's presence is when they're not here anymore. There was probably another funny story. Oh, yeah. So I was afraid that I couldn't sing. And he said, what I want to tell you is that I couldn't carry a note in a pickup truck when I first started singing, which I found that hard to believe. But he believed and was a champion of learning how to do something, no matter where your starting point was. And that's something I learned from him. So I'm going to take this award. I'll probably give to Felicia later. But thank you for coming out.
Michael Jones has been making functional ceramics for over 30 years. You can not only see his work locally within shops and restaurants in town, but you can see his work across the country being utilized functionally as well as in various art exhibits. His Japanese-inspired art ranges from dishes and bowls for serving, structural ikebana vases, and garden seats. His talents have not only been inspired by his parents, who were both accomplished artists, but also by those he studied with in Japan and the United States. A quote describing Michael's work: "All pieces are beneficiaries of Michael's superb knowledge of glazes, an aspect of the ceramic arts that so many potters prefer to avoid due to their complexity and unpredictability." Please join me in honoring Michael Jones with this year's VIDA Award.
Okay. Yeah, thanks. This is good? Okay. Whoa. Okay, is this better? I guess so. I'll just be this far away. Okay. So in the introduction, both my parents were artists. They studied at the Chicago Art Institute during the Depression, and and my father was a very good painter who's in obscurity these days. What happened was that he was in the Army during World War II. He did not go abroad. He engineered staying out of conflict by always volunteering for a new thing that required more training. And then after that training was passed and over, they put him through basic training again. He went, during World War II, he went through basic training 6 times. Okay. Now, it's pretty clear what he was working on. He was trying to delay deployment, and he succeeded. He did not leave the continental United States. And it's probably at the base of what I did when I graduated from college and was being assaulted by my draft board, of why I applied to become a conscientious objector. And so that's my politics. And after that, I went to Ohio State and I majored in art, and as an undergraduate and as a graduate student, and there was a woman that she's from New Zealand. Her husband is a research physicist, and at the time he was researching superconductors at Ohio State. And her name is Betty Collings. And she had seen me as an undergrad going through the art building at Ohio State and wondered what this guy was up to. And then I got admitted to the graduate program, and she gave me an assistantship position working for the University Gallery because she had been appointed the gallery director at the last minute when the director that had been running the gallery left town, and he left it in a mess. So, but she put her head down and put in place an exhibition program that put Ohio State on the map. And along the way, she was active in getting funding from mostly the National Endowment for the Arts, and they helped underwrite exhibitions that I got to see in the University Gallery. And at one point, I worked for her as a graduate assistant to handle the graduating exhibitions that grad students had to do before they were absolutely done. And she said, all I want is these exhibitions to look presentable, and I don't want to hear about any hassles, because I'm working on other things. And I guess I did everything right, because then later, after I graduated, I was back for a visit at Ohio State, and she came down the hall of the ceramics area, and she said, Michael, you have a job yet? Because I had just finished all my requirements, and I had not found a job. And she said, I said, no, not yet. And she said, well, Bill Spurlock, who was the first director of the gallery at Wright State, after it was completed. And he, to an extent, put that program on the map. He brought a lot of artists out from New York that did experimental projects, and they got talked about around Ohio and outside Ohio. And then I noticed that everything that Betty Collings was doing in the Ohio State Gallery was getting attention outside of the university, outside of Columbus. There were people in New York were paying attention to what Ohio State was doing, especially since they'd started a collection. And when she went around to look at exhibitions in galleries, they welcomed her every time, because often she would leave with a commitment to buy buy an important work of art for the collection. And she figured out that she could augment what was being spent by, again, mining the National Endowment for the Arts, because they had a category in the visual arts that would put up money for an institution to buy works by living artists. And you could get a maximum of $20,000 from NEA, and then they would, you had to match it. So you had would be a $40,000 project, but by the time it was finished. And she had about 5 of these over the course of her career. And at a certain point, what she was doing begged the question, when is the largest school in the Big Ten going to have a museum? University of Michigan had one, and a bunch of others did. I didn't have the tally. And that became an agenda item from her, in her mind, and I watched that and thought, right, she just goes right for the target. She's a good friend now, and then in the process of Ohio State decided they wanted a museum, she got canned because other people that were on the faculty wanted a piece of that action, and she was in the way. So she got canned, and she was really shocked. And people in the arts in Ohio backed away from her. At the Arts Council and elsewhere, she was apostate. And I had recently taken over the job at, I was at Wright State. And I said, okay, I'm going to get a frickin' grant from the OAC, which had backed away from her, and and have her curate a competitive contest for exhibitions. And she relished it because she was good at it, and nobody had given her an offer. And we did this 6 times. Okay, now, that put Ohio State on the map in Ohio and outside. There weren't too many other institutions that had as robust an exhibition program as Ohio State. And I was envious because I thought, well, if she can do it, I can do it, you know. But she had access to a development office that when she got a grant, she had to match with hard cash. Ohio State was not about to let any penny of that get away because it hadn't been matched. Wright State didn't have a deep enough alumni base to do the same thing. I asked them if they could, and they said, we just don't have the alumni pool to draw from. So I had to figure out other ways. But I had started to write grant proposals for exhibitions that were meant to tour. And over at 2 institutions, first at Wright State and then at University of Akron, there were probably 10 exhibitions that toured. It's 15 exhibitions, and 10 of them, or a little less, toured in Ohio. But 6 of them toured nationally. And I didn't have a staff. I mean, I had work-study students working for me, but they were not yet graduated art students, you know. So it was an interesting thing to do, but it was and it was challenging, but a lot of people learned around the country, and first around the state, and then elsewhere in the country, learned about those 2 institutions in small ways or bigger ways. And here we are in Yellow Springs, and what are we doing that will get people's attention outside of Greene County, outside of Ohio, okay? There was a time when Antioch was robust, and it was doing that automatically with the people that it had come through as speakers or performers or publishing books that academia really embraced. So what do we have that is reaching out and grabbing somebody and saying, pay attention to this place? So one thing that could be done is to take a look at Talus Drive. That's the most distinguished and interesting small-scale development in town. There are a lot of municipalities around the country that are deeply committed to settling some of the problems having to do with low-cost housing and improving that situation, and doing so in a way in ways that are architecturally distinctive, innovative and distinctive. And sadly, Yellow Springs doesn't have that tradition. And Dave Chappelle was the first person to protest when a farm field was sold and the developer was going to do cookie cutter stuff. And in order to find someone to talk about it, you would have to have found the cemetery where Malvina Reynolds is buried out in California. She's the author of Little Boxes. How many people know that song? Okay, well, you get the point, okay? So what can be done? We've got a new part of, what's the name of that plot? Who owned that? That's being developed right now. They live right. Spring Meadows. It's Spring Meadows, that's the name, and the former owners are I forget their name. Anyway. Kenny? Huh? Kenny? The Kennys, right. It's getting pretty close to what Malvina Reynolds complained about. But it's pretty far along, and it's not a mess. But if you go just a little further on Dayton Street and then go to where we all vote and pass that turnoff and keep going on Enon Road, you'll come to the rest of the field that has not been developed yet. And it's magnificent to look at as you drive by. It's just been harvested. All the debris from the corn plants is just on the ground. That's the only blight of sorts, visual blight. It's got a serenely quiet descent, and then past the limit of that plot is the small lake that we have. Is my time out?
Yeah, we're gonna be the shepherd's hook.
She doesn't know.
We're the shepherd's
There are
hook.
people in the audience that know that once you get me started.
Yeah. I'm the shepherd's hook.
I know, but you talked longer than I have already.
No, I don't think that's true. There are other people here, and I will
Okay,
talk.
so
I'll
now-
talk to you
okay.
later about my stuff.
But now
I'm going to be a member
I'm
of
gonna
the Daughters of
conclude.
the American Revolution.
In conclusion, this town needs to figure out some things that will get attention outside of Greene County, outside of Ohio, that matter. And so this is not crimes. This is distinguished creative activity, and this committee could be a spearhead for that. Okay.
Yes.
No, wait. That's the first thing. Just think about it. The articles that will be published about this little burg, okay? And what these people figured out how to get started when Oblivion was already well developed. Okay?
We're not there yet.
So, there's so much more to talk about, but I'm gonna leave it there.
Okay.
Give me a kiss. Oh, wait, one more thing. Just one more thing.
No, the bike's
I planted this idea in our mayor's ear this very morning. I said, I'm not going to raise a ruckus. And I don't think this is a ruckus. I think this is polite conversation. Okay? So think about all
that. The next recipient came to Yellow Springs in 1965. She was first known for her large mosaic frogs that could be seen at comms. She was hired at Antioch College as a graphic designer and was responsible for hundreds of posters displayed throughout the village. In addition, she was responsible for creating large fabric wall hangings to support the college and other causes. When public access television first appeared here in the village of Yellow Springs, she created ways of making the dull announcements that ran continuously more lively by incorporating poetry and aphorisms for the community to enjoy. Florence Lorenz was not only a visual artist and poet, but she also graced us with her presence on the stage. She appeared playing in major roles in several musicals at the YS Center Stage Theater, as well as in Dayton and Fairborn. She specialized in musical comedies with her husband, Leon Holster. Her appearances include a lead in Pajama Game and Born Yesterday. Her performances also extended to various performing musical groups. Although time has passed, her inspiration continues among those in the village. Please join me in honoring Florence Lorenz with the 2024 VIDA Award. Sorry. I'm gonna do this.
Well, I'm 92 years old. I don't walk very well, and my hearing aids really don't work very well either. So I'm not quite sure what she said about me. And I drink coffee with Michael over there most days, so he can tell me what he's just said. I hope I can read what you'll give me a copy of what you wrote about. So, and I kind of forgot that I was supposed to make a speech. So I'm just going to ramble a little bit. I went to school at the Art Institute of Chicago, and when my second husband dumped me for one of his students, I was too humiliated to go home to mother, and I had a baby. But I had a sister and a number of other relatives living in Dayton, so I came to Dayton and lived there for a couple of years. But I discovered that the only people I could talk to came from Yellow Springs. So I got the opportunity. I had very little income, but there was a mentally retarded old lady. Actually, in those days, she was classified as a high-grade moron. She could function by herself, but she needed somebody to live in the house with her. So for a very small amount of money, me and my little daughter got to live in her house, and Yellow Springs was wonderful. Helen was addicted to the telephone. Like, for example, when she pulled out her frozen dinner and it had mold on it, I said, "Helen, you can't eat that. That'll make you sick." And she had to call up 3 people to find out if that was really true. So I knew I could put her to bed, my baby to bed, and walk 2 blocks down to Comms, which many of you may remember. It was a bar restaurant that was family oriented. And I knew if my baby made a peek, Helen would be on the phone and I could go run home. Anyway, it was wonderful. I've been happy ever since I moved to Yellow Springs, although all the bad things happened, but there was just this ambience of happiness all the time. So I stumbled into this job, and I was sitting at comms one time, and this man I'd never met before stopped me, and he said, some people I know recommend you as a good artist. I think I mentioned I'd gone to the Art Institute of Chicago. Would you be interested in a job? Of course I was interested in a job, and so I was hired as a graphic designer at Antioch College in what they called the audiovisual department. And I worked there for 32 years, and mostly what I did was make posters. And I had an old-fashioned Xerox machine, which it had a camera here and bellows, and you could shoot things here, and then over here was a dish that had, with a lid on it that had carbon on it. And you swished it back and forth, and the image would come up. I had that tool, I had a headliner, and I had a show card press. And I made, over the 32 years I worked there, I made hundreds of posters. And most of them were really good looking, I have to admit. And they were posted all over. They were for events that were happening at the college. So when I mentioned how old I was. Well, not only do I have trouble with my hearing and my walking, but I forget a lot of things, so that when I first got the notice that I was being awarded, I thought, what on earth am I being awarded for? And then, so I started thinking, oh yeah, I made all those posters. and then I think she mentioned when public access came along, the television, the first couple of years, they didn't have very many programs. They just have announcements of the village. Went over and over and over again. So I got to thinking, what benefits from being seen over and over again? And I thought, oh, poetry. So I started posting poetry on public access, and that happened for a couple of years. Then I met Leon Holster, who many of you may remember, who is this outstanding, wonderful actor and funny man, and he was awfully good at making nonverbal noises, I was aware of him as a public figure. Oh gosh, I'd like to tell the story about how I met him. Should I tell the story? Well, my daughter and I, who was 3 and 4 years old, that was when in the summertime, they hired New York actors to come and do plays here, and local people supplemented. So Winnie and I used to go, Winnie is right there, that's my daughter. We used to go watch rehearsals in the afternoon, and it was there that I learned that even New York actors have trouble memorizing, because I'd always been attracted to the theater, but I had such a hard time memorizing. But every time Leon came on stage, everybody would relax because he always knew his lines. He was so spontaneous and funny. And so I got invited to this opening night party, and I saw him across the room. Oh, by this time I'd had a lot of therapy, and I wasn't interested in a man anymore. So I saw him across the room, and I thought, well, I've never talked to him before. And so I went over and introduced myself, and I'd like to find out about people's background when I first meet them, and so he started telling me about his background. And it shot through my head this is a man I could love. And when that shot went through my head, all of a sudden the tears started rolling down my cheeks. And poor Leon, who had no idea what was going through my head, when he saw the tears running down, the tears started running down his cheeks. Later, when I would tell this story, he would say, yeah, her tears were falling down her cheeks and fell on her boobies. Anyway, he mentored me in theater, and I discovered that theater was much more rewarding than the visual arts, because you don't get much feedback from the visual arts, but when you're on the stage, people tell you you're wonderful all the time, and I really craved that. No, I think I've talked long enough, but one other thing. I grew up in a family where they made an emphasis on making a contribution to society, and I've always felt kind of guilty because I had so much fun doing all the things I was doing, and I didn't feel like I was making a contribution to the society, but this makes me feel like I really was doing a contribution to society. Thank you.
The next honoree tonight can be seen on weekends downtown off Xenia Avenue. I think you know who it already is. He has brought a smile to the faces of villagers and visitors alike. When asked how he would like me to introduce him, he simply said he has been creating wordplay, poetry, and punny t-shirts for the village in a very long time. I will let Robert say the rest. The final 2024 VIDA Award tonight will be presented to Robert Paschal.
So I wasn't sure what t-shirt to wear tonight. And I do have one. It's the Statue of Liberty playing Frisbee golf. So the position of the hand with the torch, this is where the backhand winds up, and she's throwing a red Frisbee. And I did not wear that shirt. Thank you for giving me this award. In the summer of 1966, I came to Yellow Springs to enter Antioch as a freshman. Part of my Antioch education/experience was taking pottery classes from Michael Jones' mother, Janet Jones. She was a wonderful teacher. They were wonderful classes, and getting my hands in wet clay was a transformative moment in my artistic journey. If you want to spark your creative juices, ceramics, not plastic, Dustin. Ceramics. And speaking of transformative catalysts of artistic output, when pressed into wet clay, I'd have to admit that all the sex, drugs, music, dancing. Did I say dancing? And with dancing, you get music and dancing. A two-step hoofer twofer. A non-choosy doozy of a sucrose footloose enthuser. And we're bungeed SpongeBob, Punjab sundog jubilant loofahs. An exuberant tribe, adding sublime to our coconuts, shaking our bodily bacon on roads taken and soaking up the vibe. all that stuff, all that frisbee throwing and walking in the Glen, set against the backdrop of the civil rights movement and the war in Vietnam. The enticing out of sight, mores sliced and diced, no digital website zeitgeist was one big engine, melange, salmagundi, hybrid heffalump of artistic expression and social foment. A vibrant, burgeoning artistic heyday, melee, say hey, cray cray, not necessarily obey. A occasion, an inclusive, pivotal, integral, cultural ligament, a pervasive, persuasive, innovative collation, and Antioch was in the thick of it. You know that I sell t-shirts on the street, so I'll just run over a few of them verbally. Picture, if you will, a pink motor scooter with the caption, Hardly Davidson. A mother koala bear and a baby koala bear with the caption B-A-B-E-A-R-L-Y, barely qualified. And you can't go wrong wearing that shirt. The side view mirror of a car, you see the driver in an oncoming car. On the side view mirror, it says, caution, sex objects appear bigger in mirror. A man and a woman coming out of a donut shop holding big boxes of donuts. There's a big sign with a big donut on it, and it says, Whole Foods. A picture on a shirt of a man ironing a shirt. He's got a very dreamy, blissed out look on his face, and the caption is, Iron Man. Okay, we handed out, these are playlist titles here. I'm asking somebody to read me a single line, any line from any page, and I'll turn that into a poem. One line, any one line.
Put a potato in a bag.
Put the bag in a cupboard. Put the cupboard in a room. Come back a month later, go into the room, open the cupboard, open the bag, and there will be the pale arms of the potato reaching for its lost lover, the sun. A seed in the ground knows where the sun is, knows which way to reach for fire and water, and lives somewhere in between. You can separate yourself, from nature, from goddess, from the communion and suffering of others. But inside you is a light seeking release from your body's darkness, and an invisible seed reaching for the light. Shadows are very mysterious. The 10,000 things are cloaked in nuance. Break the mold of definition to find the light. How? One way is to sit quietly like a potato till your blind eyes sprout leaf-fringed arms. You can put a potato in a bag. Now, I don't think my time's up yet. Also, that turned into a t-shirt. I had bought a big bag of potatoes in a brown paper bag, thrown them in the cupboard under my sink, forgot about them for 3 weeks, opened the cupboard door. The vines were about 3 or 4 feet long. It knocked me off my feet. I wrote the poem. Then I sat there in what I call the trance dance of creativity, and I start drawing the last image. How do you break the mold of definition to find the light? One way is to sit quietly like a potato. So I draw a meditating body with the head of a sprouting sweet potato on it, not knowing what I'm doing. And then my pun brain kicks in, and I say, if you put it in a field, in a meadow, you can write meadow tater under it. And then I do that, then I prop it up in my kitchen as a black and white drawing. A week later, I'm looking at it, and I realize that this thing has a green thought balloon, which says, I am what I am. Then it becomes a T-shirt, and a year later, I do a second T-shirt, which is a meadow-tater meditates and doesn't dilly-dally. You find a meadow-tater in my yammy valley. I would like to take another request. My time is not up. Anybody else want to read me?
There's time for one more, and then also Felicia Chappelle is on her way to accept the award. So, yes, please do one more.
Poetry is of the moment or nothing.
If your poetry molecule fits, whoopee! If not, bleh, the buzzer sounds, bleh, you're dragged off stage bleh, by the crook of circumstance. I think it would be wonderful if we all could read our poems simultaneously, or not. Pour as many voices as crickets do into the pot of silence.
Thank you all for coming, who have arrived. Please just give one more round of applause to all the 2024 recipients. Robert, if you'd like to, you're more than welcome.